Well, welcome to another episode of Steve's Basement. I haven't done one of these in a while, and today's little bit that I'm going to do is a project which I've had in the back of my mind for many years now, and it's been to explore the world of small computing, small micro devices and so on. And one of the very popular items that have sprung up over the past, I guess, year or so, and within the last 6 months, is the notion of setting up an ARM-based computer using these small system-on-a-chip type devices. And I think the most popular one right now is the Raspberry Pi, which was announced, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And when it was announced and it went on sale, they sold out immediately. There was all sorts of backorder issues and so on. So what I did is I thought, this might be a good time to actually get on board and start playing with these systems on a chip type devices. And instead of trying to fight the initial crowd, I held back and waited several months, and my schedule is finally cleared up so that I can actually have a little bit of time that I can dedicate to this project. So at the beginning of this week, I went off and I ordered a Raspberry Pi, and that they had them in stock. There was no issue. I actually got revision B of the board of the system, and bought a couple of other items. And today what I'm going to do is we're going to have a little fun. I've got all my packages have come in, and I've gone off to Radio Shack and I bought a couple of other items that I need to assemble the system, and basically just plug it all together and see what happens. I still haven't downloaded the operating system. I'm assuming it has some kind of a BIOS, so that when I plug it in, at least I'll see something flashing on the screen, and I should be able to hit enter into my keyboard and see my cursor scroll downwards with a little prompt of some sort. Now that's what I'm envisioning. I have no idea what's going to happen. But I thought part of the fun is you guys get to experience firsthand my trials and tribulations as I try to put one of these devices together. Now, so let's go through the packages here. The first thing I got was the Raspberry Pi itself. Here it is. So let's see, I ordered it. I went to the Raspberry Pi website, and I ended up getting it from some company in Newark. That must be the shipping people. But anyway, so here it is. I just pulled that out. And it's from some electronics distributor. I can't remember exactly where I got it. But basically, I went to the raspberrypi.org and clicked around, and they had the order link. And so anyway, so it's inside this box. This is the first time I'm actually opening one of these guys up. Well, I'm not going to open it just yet. So in this box, all right, I will open it up. And here we have, okay. Okay. Sorry about the glitch. As it turns out, I ran out of space on my SD card on my video camera. So I had to go and delete some previous videos I made and proceed. So here we are again. I was at the exciting moment of showing you the Raspberry Pi, and here it is. Now this device costs $35. Okay, there is the Raspberry Pi. Of those of you who know about the Raspberry Pi, you know all about it. I really don't have to tell you anything. It's got all sorts of ports, USB, Ethernet, HDMI for the, this is the HDMI key. Alright, for those of you who don't know, let's go over the board real quick. USB adapter, Ethernet RJ45 adapter. This is the HDMI to plug into your video, into the monitor. This is another kind of a monitor output, sort of a standard S video. I think this is audio. So my O pins are right here, and in the back, that's where you plug in the memory card that's going to hold the operating system. And in the center of the whole thing, that's the ARM processor right there. Right there is the ARM processor. Now, one thing you should not be doing is manhandling your printed circuit board like I am right now, so I might have actually shorted out and busted the board by now. We'll see. And then there's some more pins. I really don't know what they are. There might be some output pins. But anyway, okay, so this is your basic device. And what else do we have? You have to get power for it. So I went off and I bought something to power this this card. This is the first one, open this. And what I should have in here is basically a micro USB charger. As I don't know how well you know, but USB actually carries power. So you got to be careful when you wire up your USB cables or the USB connectors on your motherboards, because if you wire it up wrong, you might fry out your you know, your whatever device or the motherboard or whatnot. So anyway, so I have here is this looks like it plugs into the wall. This plugs into the wall, and this is the cable that plugs into this. So basically, this is a USB power. You stick this guy inside, plug it into the wall. You stick your USB cord in there, and then you can get power. And this is the cord, and this cord is basically a USB, standard USB to micro USB connector. So if you take a look, that's the standard USB, this is the micro USB, and you plug this guy in like so. Nope. There. It's plugged in, you plug this into the wall, plug this in to the Raspberry Pi circuit board. And just to make sure it all works, let's give it a try. I hope this works. This might be our first failure. No? Might actually fit. I'm not putting it backwards. This thing. Alright, so it goes like so. And lo and behold, it plugs in. So I've plugged in. I don't like the way this cable fits in. It feels very, very iffy. Alright, but that's the way they did it. So I don't really like the way it plugs in. But anyway, that is the micro USB power connection. Okay, so what other things did I get? So we're now able to power it. Now I need to be able to plug it into a monitor, but I only have the standard here. This is the monitor that I'm going to be using right here. And it just has VGA and DVI. So I went off and I bought in Radio Shack an HDMI to DVI adapter. So the plan is to plug this into the, well, let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, here's the adapter. That's HDMI. That is the DVI on the other side. And we're going to now plug this in like so. Alright. Easy connection. Voila. Okay, that's in there. And then I've got keyboard and mouse over here. right? Keyboard and mouse, but I have a wireless. It's one of these wireless setups, right? But what I'm going to actually do is I've got one of these little gizmos that plugs the mouse into a final USB. So I should be able to connect the USB into it like so. So now I've got keyboard and mouse. So this is actually a wireless keyboard and mouse. And that's it. So I'm going to stop here for a moment. And I'm going to assemble all this together, and then we're going to power it on for the first time, and we'll be looking at the monitor as it powers on for the first time and see if it actually works. Oh, one last thing I got. Never do anything like this without your handy multimeter, right? Because you never know. One of the biggest problems is power. You have to make sure you have adequate power, and I don't trust that little device, that micro USB connector for the power. I've also read on several comments on the Raspberry Pi website when I searched for the power. Boy, something is getting my throat. Oh boy, I hope I'm not getting poisoned. I don't know, something in the package was, oh anyway. So, alright, well anyway, so here is the multimeter. So this will allow me to actually measure if I've got 5 volts of power going to the device. And one thing about printed circuit boards, let me unplug this because this is too much. One thing about any one of these circuit boards is I don't have an actual schematic for it, but I bet I can find one on the net, is you got to be able to find out where to measure the power. And typically you don't want to measure the power at the power source here. What you want to measure is the power somewhere in here. And if you look really closely, there's some pins right here, and I'm wondering if one of these pins is actually the power pin. So I can just probe that pin to get the voltage for the card. So anyway, that's one of the things that you need to test, make sure the thing is working right. So I'll be checking for power, and once I plug it in, it's kind of hard for me to test for the power and video it at the same time. So I don't know if I'll do that. But once we actually do the first power on and see what it looks like, we'll film that, and we'll see if it works. The step after that, oh, the other thing I had to buy was a micro SD card. Okay, there it is. And basically I ended up just going to Radio Shack and spending a mere $87 on the multimeter, that little HDMI to DVI adapter, and this memory card here. So this supposedly very cheap system on a chip is now starting to climb in cost. So we started out with $35, but now with all the peripherals, we're running over $100 for this little experiment. And I can't open this memory card. I hate this. Anyway, I'll figure out a way of opening that up in a minute. Alright, so next step, let's power it all together. So I have one little bit that I want to... So why am I doing all this? Well, one, I enjoy playing around with computers and anything that has to do with a CPU chip and an operating system. The other reason why I'm doing this is not just to plug this in and power it on and see a blinking cursor. You know, I am curious to see how far the Linux operating system has come along in being able to run on one of these ARM processors. What I've seen on the internet is that basically only Linux are the operating system's choices that you have. My guess is you can probably get one of those industrial type real-time operating systems like Wind River, I think was one. There's QNX, I think is another one. There's a whole variety of companies that sell real-time operating systems. But I'm more interested in Linux and see how well that runs. And the other thing is, the biggest thing right now on the internet or in the world of computing are handheld devices. This is really where everything is at. And I've spent a lifetime of building my own computers. My basement here is a testimony to all the computers that I've built in the past. But now it seems like the field of handheld devices has consolidated onto mobile devices, the phones, right? So you have Samsung and you have the iPhones, and the Samsung runs the Google operating system, the iPhone runs the iOS, the Apple operating system. And their choices have become extremely narrow as to what you can do. Now, these operating systems, the iPhone and the Android operating system, the Apple operating system, the Android, they allow you to develop your own apps, so you can download them and so on. But it's all under the control of Apple and Google. And to me, this is too centralized. I don't like the fact that there's too much centralized control over the distribution of the software. And the whole point of Linux is that it's open, it's free, and it's free as in liberty free, as opposed to being money free, as in being zero cost dollars. And I think there's a lot greater opportunity to be able to create some kind of a handheld mobile device that runs the Linux operating system, and ultimately it'll give me, I think, just a greater sense of opportunity to be able to do what I want and putting this together. So, if this project is actually successful, the first thing we do is we're going to power on this Raspberry Pi, see how that goes. The next step is to actually come up with some kind of a casing and some kind of a power supply, a battery-driven power supply, so that, and maybe a small touch screen, such that I can bundle all this together into a handheld. Now the handheld might be the size of a suitcase when we first start, but the point is do something that will resemble something like a handheld that I can hold in my hand, runs with a battery, and runs the Linux operating system on a touch screen. Now, I might be able to load Linux onto a Galaxy. They say that the Android is Linux-based, but I want this to be really generic, a Linux operating system running the X window system, the X11 window system, or even better, either KDE or the GNOME desktops. And so this is all going to be an experiment to see how far we go down this path. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so here comes the moment of truth. I've got Raspberry Pi assembled. So here we go. There is one Raspberry Pi ready to be powered on. I've got the SD card right there. There is the HDMI cable hooked up to my HDMI to DVI connector, hooked up to my DVI to VGA adapter, hooked up to my VGA cable, and that goes to my monitor here. We've got the USB that plugs into all these cables here, which eventually ends up to here. This thing is the little receiver transmitter for the wireless for my keyboard and mouse. Keyboard. And then finally, I've got power running across there, a bunch of cables, and then that ends up over here, and then that ends up powering the power connector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this thing in, and then as I plug it in, we should see something on the monitor. The problem is I can't really plug it in and film at the same time. So I'm going to set up my tripod, put my tripod facing the monitor, and I'm going to plug it in, and then you guys will be looking at the monitor as opposed to looking at the card just to see what the monitor looks like. And it's always kind of fun to see the very first time you plug something in if it's actually going to work or not. Okay, so now you're looking at the monitor. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of backlighting, and I'm just going to speak here while that's being, while you're looking at the monitor. All right, so I've got the power. I am now going to try and plug the power into the Raspberry Pi, and there it goes. It's in. And now let's see what happens. I see a light coming on. It's red. And I don't see anything else. Now the question is, I just thought of something. Without an operating system, we might not get anything. All right, let me stop filming for a second. Okay, so I powered it on. You can see the power right there. And I've got this little red light right there. Well, I'm going to have to debug this. Alright, I'm in debugging mode. So this is typical for the first time you try to plug something in. It doesn't really work. My guess is that I was being a little bit too thinking that the internal BIOS, if there's such a thing on this card, would have actually been driving the monitor, but it might not be. Could be that I really do need to have an OS on the disk before it actually does anything. So I'm going to do a little bit of researching here. Most likely I'm going to have to go to the internet and download some version of Fedora or some Linux version, ARM Linux version that I can download onto the SD drive or the memory card. And when I do that, we'll try this once again. Alright. Okay, well, I'm back. I did a little investigation on the internet, and it turns out that that red light that you saw on the board is actually a sign that things are actually working well. So solid red light, it was the power LED, so power indicator. Solid red light means that it's everything is fine. I actually found a little test point on the board, and when I plugged it in, plug the power, and I can actually measure the power directly. And here is my little voltmeter, and I'm not going to plug it in right now, but basically there is a test point located right there. That is TP1. I don't know how well you can actually see that, but that's test point 1, and that's the power test point. So they actually, as a good printed circuit board designer should, design in a place to measure the power directly of the circuit board. And when I measured it, it was 5.1 volts. The power supply that I'm using here, this little gizmo, is from Motorola. It's used to, I think it's used to power a video camera. I'm not sure, but it's rated to be 5.1 volts at 800 milliamps, and or 850 milliamps. And this thing requires 700 milliamps. The minimum power is 700 milliamps at 5 volts. So, so we got a good power supply. So then what I did is further reading. Clearly, I needed to actually install an image on the SD card. I have now done so. Installing the image is what I thought. I download a file. It's a big, it's actually almost a 2 gigabyte file once it's downloaded and uncompressed. And it's an image file and you use DD, the DD command, to copy the file onto your SD memory card. I'm not going to go into the details of how to do that. It's fairly clearly indicated on the various websites that I've seen, the step-by-step procedure to do that, so I'm not going to waste time on that. But it's all done. Put it in there. I've got the Raspberry, which is the Debian version of the ARM Linux. And now, for the moment of truth, I'm going to try to plug it in again and see the first boot of this little Raspberry Pi. Let me, I'm going to put the video camera now. There it is, the setup. There's my tripod in front of the monitor. So I'm going to put my video camera on that tripod and get ready for the first boot. Okay, so there it is. It's plugged in. And I am now going to plug in the Raspberry Pi and let's see what the first boot looks like. Power on the monitor. The monitor now has power. And now I'm going to power the Raspberry Pi. Okay, I saw a flashing light. Oh, okay, I see things flashing on the Raspberry Pi. Something is happening. Okay. My guess is that it's now booting. Can't really see much. I've got the video on the wrong side. Well, anyway, we're still waiting to see first light. Little green light is there's a little green flash LED flashing, and my guess is it's going through its booting procedure. But the big question is, am I going to see something on the monitor? And it sure has taken its time. Well, so far nothing on the monitor. Now, well, again, alright, that didn't work. Let's stop this for a second. Well, it didn't work. Something's wrong with my video setup here. Alright, so back to reviewing. There is that red LED, which means that the power's on correctly. Let me reset it. Let me unplug it and plug it back in again. See if I can do this with just one hand. Alright, I have to set the video camera down. Hold on. Alright, so I powered it off. Power back on again. And as I power it on, take a look, you'll see the green LED flashing there. So something is clearly happening. And my guess is that it's booting at this point. This is where I wanted to see all sorts of stuff scrolling down. I have a feeling that the output is going to this device here as opposed to the HDMI. The HDMI probably requires, I don't know, some activation. Who knows what's going on with that HDMI, but that's not working right now. Well, this is frustrating. And then, well, you see it's doing something. And then after a while, it just stops, the little green light stops flashing. And there's not much more to it. Now, one thing I'm thinking that I might do is hook up the Ethernet, and it's supposed to boot via DHCP, and I might be able to log into it over the network without actually seeing anything on the monitor. So that's going to be my next attempt. I'm going to do that right now. Well, this is getting a little frustrating. I did plug in the Ethernet cable, and now you can see the Ethernet lights right there. They're now operational and they're flashing. I set up I have a little DHCP server on my Linux box down here, and as you can see, here I am. I've set it up as a Raspberry Pi as the IP address, and I can SSH to it, right? and it's actually coming back and asking for the password. Now the only problem is I don't know what the username password is for this particular incarnation of the operating system. So I'm a little stuck. I'd like to be able to log into it at least over the network. Something is going on. I can, SSH, and it's inquiring for a password. The lights are flashing on the board. It's clearly picking up a DHCP address when it boots up. So I have to do a little bit more research here, and I am getting frustrated as to not being able to get anything on the monitor. So I'm going to have to research the monitor part of this now. So nothing is easy in life, is it?
That they know, a store, a room. The Air Force and the military could be looking anywhere on a huge field. So there are some...
Okay, well, I'm on another phase of this debugging process to try to get this Raspberry Pi going. So I'm going to hook it up directly to my TV. There's my TV. There's the Raspberry Pi. And I've got my PlayStation 3 right over there. I've got my Wii, my Xbox 360, so I've got all sorts of devices here. And I'm using the HDMI output of my PlayStation 3. I've actually hooked it up to the Raspberry Pi. There it is. Let me get a little closer. Okay, so that used to be actually plugged into my PS3. So we're going to power this thing on and see if we see anything from the my TV. Here we go. Okay, that's powered on. Oh, now I see something. It's booting. And get a little Raspberry Pi logo there. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to need an HDMI native monitor to make this thing to work. Oh, here we go. Info. What do we have here? Oh, interesting little configuration. Okay, well, I think my wife's coming, so we have to stop now. But obviously what I need to do is get the proper monitor. The DVI to the HDMI to DVI to VGA, that's just not working. So I've got to figure out how to best hook up a monitor to this thing. Okay, so welcome back to my continuing project here with the Raspberry Pi. So the last bit was I was trying to figure out what was going on with video output, and I plugged the Raspberry Pi directly into my TV upstairs. And it came alive. It was clear that the board was functioning. I could see the signal and the output on the my TV screen, so everything worked well. So I did a little hunting around. The big mistake that I made was you can't use the VGA output from the HDMI. I should have known that. But I went and scavenged up just a straight DVI cable, as we can see here. So there is the DVI cable. So, and there's this little DVI to VGA converter is out. We don't want that. We've got now the straight DVI, and that goes into the monitor. So this should work. Actually, no, it works because I've already tried it. But so now we're actually going to boot this thing up here in the basement, and we're going to see the whole booting sequence. We're going to see the booting sequence and all that good stuff as so you get an idea of how this Raspberry Pi works. And okay, so here we go. All right, so there's the monitor. I'm now going to plug in the power. And okay, power's in. And we should see a little green light come out. And okay, so we're seeing the boot sequence. And we're booting a version of Debian. This running the Raspberry distribution or image. One thing that I like about this is the when you install a new operating system with Linux, you usually have to go through a fairly complicated sequence of formatting drives and so on. And this just basically do a DD and you copy the image onto the SD drive and you're all set. So anyway, here it is. We're now in the environment. What I want to see is if we can actually run. Here is a browser. Let's see how well this browser works. Oh, here we go. And I want to see, oh, this is a cute little browser here. Let's go to, how about the New York Times? And can I surf the New York Times? Seems a little slow. There it is. I am now surfing the web on this little Raspberry Pi application. So it's a nice little. This is very cool. This is the future of computing, as far as I'm concerned. Do a top. Let's see, how much memory do I have? It looks like I've got about 200 megabytes of memory. And there's about 200 megabytes of swap space. Well, it's 100 megabytes of swap space. And let's take a look at the file system. You probably can't see anything I'm doing here. Let's see if I can change the font size. We'll make this a nice big font size. Style, display, advanced. Where are the fonts? Well, you would think I'd have a way of, here we go. This is what we're going to change. This is a nice big font. There we go. A little bit too big. Let's try 18. Okay, so how about that? Now we have a nice big font. Let's see how well can you see that? I think you might be able to see that. Okay, and we're looking at the disk. I've got somewhere on the order of gigabyte and a half allocated to the file system, and you do a top, and we can see all the various processes running. And anyway, all right, so this is very cool. I'm really impressed. And let's see if I can SSH into my office here. Oh, weird keyboard. Let's see. 31. And now I'm actually on my desktop upstairs. This is my Intel-based desktop, so I've just logged it to my desktop up in my office upstairs. Okay, so that's a quick tour. That's basically all I needed to do, is to prove that I could surf the web, run the terminal, and there's probably a whole bunch of other applications. I'm not really interested in writing software because I know how to write software. I'm more interested in just getting a feel for how robust the operating system is. And so far, so good. So there you have it. Okay, so that brings to a conclusion the initial power on and getting things going with my Raspberry Pi. As we can see, just as a review, there it is. I've got it hooked up to the network. This is the network. This is the USB for the keyboard and mouse, power, and the display right there. So there's a couple of obvious issues that I have with the Raspberry Pi. One is I want to build a case for it so that it's not just sitting on top of my wooden table here. Having a printed circuit board like this exposed is not a good idea. You can see the back is just, God knows, all those open circuits. Who knows what I can ground out. This is really not a good way of sort of testing. Typically what you want to do is you want to put some kind of, I don't know, put this on something, like bolt it down to some kind of a holder or some kind of something to hold it, and not just have this thing sort of float like this. So I'm going to try to design a case for this thing to see if I can make this thing a little bit more user-friendly. So that's what's going to be the next part of the project. Okay, well that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little episode of Steve's Basement, and we'll see where we take this project from here.